All right. So we will begin going again. So what we're going to get into now is we're basically going to go through um, all the things that we just looked at, but we are going to go into them in a little more detail now. Okay, so we'll start with we're not going to go in the same order that we did before. I'm kind of prioritizing them because I don't foresee us getting through all of them. But what I do want to do is go through them and get into a little more detail on the size up part. So again, same thing. You guys can unmute yourself if you want to speak, and then just raise your hand, and I'll call on you, and we can have good back and forth discussion. So this was the raised ranch. Again, if quick refresher, the door kind of in between the second and first floor, if you want to call it. That's going to be your main typical. That's going to be your giveaway that it's a raised ranch. Is it looks like a ranch, but instead of that door being even with the windows, it's going to be a little bit lower than the windows and above that basement area. So I think Bernie said before it's a raised ranch with what do you call it, an extended B side, or it's obviously an addition. If you had a regular raised ranch, it would
Added garage.
Yeah, if you had a regular raised ranch, it would end. It would end a little bit sooner. It would end right around there. But since this is it's got that extended garage there. So, but obviously the garage is going to be on that, the first floor or whatever. So if you go up to here, let's see. All right, I'm not annotating anymore because that's what's fucking me up. So if you go to this B side here, you have the garage down there, but that's not where the fire is. The fire's up here. So some of you guys that know building construction or just, kind of how it's made up, what do you assume that is, what would people generally add on to that raised ranch? The garage.
That's a bonus room.
What's going to be up there?
That's a bonus room.
Okay. And who's usually in the bonus room?
Big playroom usually.
Kids.
Okay.
Kids,
it could be a big playroom. In this case, it's actually the master bedroom. So they added, they didn't do it, but it was there when they bought it. But you got a garage down there, and this is either a playroom. In this case, it's a master bedroom, bathroom, those types of things.
Dormer.
Living area. Okay. So start giving me some things. What are some considerations? Size up and let me see. So a couple of points, before I ask, a couple of points I put down for size up. Obviously, this is what we see beyond the rig. Some of the things that we're going to point out, we may not necessarily say over the radio because not everything needs to be said over the radio, despite what some people think. But these are things that we want to put in the back of our mind. Some of the big things that we're looking for in the size up. How do we do this size up? Well, the number one thing is to get a 360 done so that we can see all sides of the building. Okay. We may be able to see the B, D, and A side on arrival, but we may not get a very good look at them. So we want to get a better look at them as we do our complete size up of walking around the building. And obviously the size up, we're using that term size up, but it involves everything that we're doing on scene. So we're going to do that 360 in order to see what's going on around the building. What are we looking for as we're doing our 360? Well, number one, we want to determine what the A side of the building is. Now, 99.9% of the time, that A side is going to be that area that we pulled up on. There is one, maybe two times tonight that we're going to look at, though, that we may not use that as the A side, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. We want to determine the number of floors because what we see from the A side may not be what the rear is like. In this case, it is, but we'll definitely see times tonight where the A side number of floors is different from what the rear is number of floors. So that's something that we want to look at. Any fire that we don't see, again, that's going to be a big one. In this case, not really a surprise, but there's going to be times tonight where we're going to see some level of fire in the front and not the rear, or vice versa. We're going to see fire in the front that we don't see in the rear, or we don't see fire in the front that we see in the rear. So we want to determine where the fire is from the exterior if we can. Determining any sort of construction features if it's not obvious from the A side. What's going to be a big thing when we talk about private dwellings? This should be right up to the top. What's that, bad construction feature? Well, I guess there's two, but one that is evident from the outside or maybe evident from the outside. What's a big construction feature with private dwellings that we want to be cognizant of? Greco,
Trusses. Trusses.
Trusses is a big one. And what's the other big one that we're going to want for private dwellings? How? I think you're raising your hand. Maybe not. Anyway, I'll just say balloon frame. All right. Those are really the two biggest ones. Obviously, trusses is more of a life safety issue for us, but a balloon frame is going to be the difference between stretching one line, knocking it down and going home, or stretching a line to every floor and being there for most of the night. So we got to determine trusses and we got to determine balloon frame, but trusses, that's a whole, we'll save that for another night. Okay. What's another big thing that we want to accomplish in our 360 that we're looking for? Floors, fire, construction, and victims. Okay. That's a big one. Don't overlook it. I know we get very used to the homeowner meeting us out front or no one being home, but you got to go to that rear looking for victims in the windows, looking for signs of victims, anything like that. I hate to say it, but especially now, everyone's quarantined at home, so there's no such thing as 11 a.m., people at work, kids in school. Not that I go into that mindset, I buy into that mindset, but if you do, now is especially the time that you don't want to get caught into that thinking that, all right, well, I'm going in, and everyone's at work or whatever, okay? Construction. The other big one, and it kind of gets mentioned, but I don't think it gets mentioned enough, and we say, where's the fire? In more detail, I want to know the lowest level of the fire. And what I mean by that is, in this case, all right, so we have fire on the second floor. That's obvious. But really important to me is knowing if I have fire in that garage. Because it's very possible that fire on the second floor was started by a small fire in the garage that got into a void space and spread up onto the second floor or first floor, again, whatever we're going to call it. And again, that's something we have to determine as that chief. What are we going to call this?
Dan.
First floor of the basement or 2 floors? Who said that? Yeah, go ahead.
It's me, Bernie.
Yeah.
One thing on this house, which it is, we determined it's a raised ranch, but just from this view alone, this doesn't follow the construction of the raised ranch. This addition, that's a gambrel roof, which is speaking to your, wide span up there and trusses and so forth. So you could pick that up in this picture alone.
Yeah, and that's absolutely a huge part. And like I said, what I'm really concerned about as well is going to be finding that lowest floor of fire so that I don't end up, operating over an uncontrolled fire. Okay. So I've kind of given you a little bit of what I'm looking for on my size up, my 360. So what does anyone else have? What other things here? So I'll give you this is obviously the B side. So let me give you. This is the CD corner, and this is the AD corner. So give me what you guys have. Well, what things do you want to touch on? What things do you see from here? I'll put them all up on the split so you can see all of them. I've kind of given you a little bit of stuff, but what do you guys see? Sweeney, go ahead. Sweeney, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
If it's not blatantly obvious from the A side, I want to know if you got smoke showing, do we have a kitchen fire? So that, like you said, not only knowing the lowest point of the fire, but doing your 360 and seeing where the room of origin is, if it can be determined.
Yeah, so use this and tell me on this 360, what are some size up points that you're picking up? What are some things that you see, maybe hazards? I'll be honest, I started with this one. There's not really any curveballs here. That's not to say it's easy, but I kind of wanted to start with one that's fairly straightforward. So, give me what you guys see, what you guys got.
Dan, Bernie again,
Yeah.
One thing
and
I would
then
look at it,
you and then
if I
Willie.
was, you
Go ahead.
there?
Yeah, go
All right.
ahead.
If I was a first-in engine officer here, one thing that would concern me on this house, which could be a curveball for a, you know, small town department, is this house is very long. So if you were going to do the old traditional, we're going to go in and cut it off and push it out, you're going to need, you know, a 250 foot line, even on this small house. If your engine's in the driveway by that big tree, you got to stretch to the front door, up the stairs, and down the length of that house. So especially if I was the attacking fire officer, that would be in my thoughts, as I'm going to need a longer line than you might think you would on just a regular raised ranch. This is a very long house.
Okay. So yeah, depending on how far it's set off of the road, and I know this is in Monroe, and I know Monroe is very happy to take driveways, but I'm not a huge fan. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, absolutely making sure you have enough lines. Macy, go ahead. Joe Macy, go ahead.
And you know, like Bernie said, with the house being so long, especially like I work in a small department, so if we don't get water on this fire quick, it's going to run the entire attic, because it looks like on the D side photo there, you got some good smoke coming out of the gable vent. So getting a vertical vent hole close to that fire might be higher on the priority list, other than fire attack, obviously.
Someone's got some background noise going. If it's you, just
Nah, I'm in a quiet room.
no, not you, someone else. So, yeah, no, absolutely. You may consider a roof vent. And again, like I said, we're not getting into too much tactics tonight, just because if I tell you you're showing up with an engine and a truck with 6 guys on each, that's different than showing up with 3 guys in the middle of the day. But yeah, I mean, it's a second floor fire, so a roof hole may be very, you know, well done in this case. Willie, what do you got? Wiley, you're muted, but you had your hand raised. So
all right. Yeah, I was just going to say, I would be really concerned about that smoke pushing out of the D, out of the gable end, the vent over there on the D side, because there could be extension all the way through that roof area, common at length, and everybody was touching about the length of the structure. That's a long distance pushing the smoke out there.
Yeah, I mean, what I tried to demonstrate here, and certainly what I am happy that you saw and pointed out, not just the smoke that's coming out of there, but you know, it's a darker color, which generally means that it's got some fuel behind it, and then also all of the smoke coming out of the eaves there. So a lot of times that smoke coming out of the eaves can be a fairly decent indication that you may have something going on up in that attic, especially if you don't have smoke coming out of those windows. So, you know, what I'm trying to kind of explain is, if you have, can you guys see the mouse or no? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So if I have smoke coming out of these windows and smoke coming out of those eaves, I'm not as concerned, versus if I do not have smoke coming out of these windows, but I do have smoke coming out of those eaves, then I know that that's probably coming from the attic area versus just residual smoke coming from this main floor. So yeah, I'm definitely trying, and you guys hit it, you know, you got to be concerned with that attic, and whether it means finding the pull down stairs to get, you know, eyes up there and see what's going on, cutting a hole in the roof, pulling ceilings, whatever the case may be. One of my first things after getting that line in place and knocking down that fire, one of those first things has got to be getting up into that attic and seeing what's going on. The other thing that's kind of a gimme, but I don't want it to get overlooked, is getting a rapid, quick primary search done. And the reason I say that is, once we start pulling those attic stairs down, once we start pulling ceilings, all of this smoke, heat, fire is going to come down on us. So if we come into that front door, and it's relatively clear, then let's use that to our advantage, get a quick primary search done. It may even not be on air. If there's a door here and this first floor is fairly clear, we can get that basement and first floor searched in maybe 30 seconds. And then once we do open that door and make this area shitty with smoke and products of combustion and all that, we've already taken care of our primary search. And so that's something that I don't think, I wouldn't overlook that. It may be the first engine officer just taking a look in there. Yeah.
The one thing I would say though, I would actually disagree with you on the attic,
Okay.
on the D side on that.
Mhm.
If you're looking at that view there, you can see that the add-on is just, nope, go back. Well, either that one's fine. See the difference in the roof line? And
Yeah.
that being a great room, which was turned into a bedroom master suite or whatever, it's highly unlikely that it shares the attic space with the existing house.
So
So
yeah. Okay.
the I mean, I know what you did for the video, but I mean, I would assume that when they added this thing on, they built the thing on the end of it and then chopped a hole in the wall
Yeah.
to put a door in.
Yep.
Because that's what they typically do. But this is I mean, I'd love to know the dimensions of this house. It's probably 120 feet long.
I'll text him. I don't think Gregor's on here, but
What's the address?
I don't know. But I'll text him right now.
Because
There
I
could
mean,
be opening from the house. You had something. Go ahead.
Heating and air conditioning. So that's where you could be getting some
That's
smoke through.
that's an excellent point too.
excellent, yeah.
That's a great point, and that's something you generally think of more commercially. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So, and again, remember, I'm making these up, so I can do it whatever I want. And that's a great point Bernie made. Was this may be on his point? Absolutely, it may be separate. On the flip side, if I want to play devil's advocate, who knows who's drilled holes in that attic to run pipes, wires, whatever the case may be. So I still want to get up into the attic, but I agree with you. It probably is unlikely that it jumped that area. So that's a very good point. Who else? Rob, you got something good.
No, Dan, I was just going to say that and again, the traditional 360 type thing is there a better way to get that first and or second line in service, whether it was, and yeah, we're talking about a large stretch, but do we need to go into the back rather than the traditional front? That sort of type of thing. You know what I mean? And I think that speaks to that.
Access for my 360 access and egress, not just for us, but for hose lines as well. So Liam, you had something, Duncan?
Yeah, Rob took the words right out of my mouth. Just
Okay.
like looking for egress and access points.
Absolutely. All right. I was going to go on to the next one unless anyone wants to hit this anymore. Which one did I have? I was going to go. All right. We're going to stick with our ranches. So this was our view that we came up to originally. Someone said I got a basement fire indicated by both the smoke from the basement window and smoke from the chimney. So a little bit of both, which I agree with. Someone said from the A side, because this is the access, this is the side that we entered. So I agree with that. If I'm going to start a 360 here, does anyone disagree with me that I'm going to go over to this side since that's where the smoke initially is? That's where I want to see first. So this is what I see when I go over there. So this is what I see when I go over there. As I continue around, this is the rear from when I pulled up. And then this is that, you can see the garage. So a little bit different. In the end, what kind of house do we have here?
Ranch.
A ranch.
Ranch.
We have nothing more than a fancy ranch with a regular ranch with a garage on the back and a couple of 3-season sun porches on either side. But for those of you that may or may not have experience with what we're talking about, if I just take this out, this is a ranch. I got my bay window here. Actually, I've kind of second bay window here, and then, my regular windows on the other side. So this is one of those where you pull up and then you really have to do your 360. Now, I mentioned it in my notes before, and I don't have experience doing this, so I'll kind of ask the chiefs in the room. This may be a point where you kind of position yourself. Is this a point where you position yourself over here and say, this is the A side? Don't use the driveway where you came in as the A side. I'm standing here and this is where my A side is. Yes? No? Disagree? Agree? Bernie says no.
I agree.
Bernie, what do you think?
I would disagree just from from what you said earlier about everybody, singing from the same sheet of music, I agree with you in concept that you have to pick a side A, but we're all kind of conditioned to, you walk up from the street and that's side A. So you're walking down the driveway, and to me, side A is the garage facing you in this house. If and if you get confused, you're in the backyard and you're calling that side A, you're going to confuse everybody. You got to keep it pretty simple unless you're really disciplined, and everybody else is disciplined.
Willie, what do you have? Wiley?
Yeah, Hart, he's actually hit the nail on the head. I mean, while our first impressions with the first slide was that we were looking right off the street, but that is knowing the house, it's a long driveway, and it's tough to say which is really the A side. But if everybody's going to come up that driveway to that house, I would still say I'd want the garage side to be called the A side, because then everybody coming up is going to come to that driveway and then looking at the house, be looking at it that way instead of coming up where what would appear to be the front door in the lower left slide. That does not face out towards the any access to it from any road, really. But, that's just my opinion there.
Again, I'm fine. As long as everyone on scene is on the same page, I'm good. Christensen, what do you got?
I'm going to agree with both Willie and Meehan. Realistically, what you pull up to should be your A side. What everybody's seeing when they pull up should be the A side. So the garage side would be the A side, where you showed the so-called front of the house, the front door there, from the front yard. That's so far off. I mean, obviously knowing the house. It's so far off the main road, you may see that pulling in, but you're not going to see that when you're pulling up to the house and pulling lines. So, it all depends on the situation, but I would say what you see first coming up to the house for the actual attack is probably what you should call the A.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Liam, you had something, go ahead.
Yeah, just last point on that. Again, just keeping that whole A side staying the same pretty much throughout. Every size up you give and kind of rolling with that forward. You can always set your command post and just identify that command post is going to be Charlie's side or on the CD corner or something like that. So that way you can have you can still have all your building labeled the same, but you could just set up your command post so you can see what's going on.
And nothing says you can't specify, garage door side is the A side. You know what I mean?
I think you absolutely should, regardless of what you do in this case. Whether you do what I said or what you guys are saying, I don't care. I do think this is one where you do have to get on the radio and specify that you're keeping this the A side or switching the A side to the other one, because I do think that there are people that would kind of get turned around a little bit, because this is such a typical ranch that just is turned 180 degrees away from the main access to the property. So, but yeah, like I said, as long as everyone's on the same page, I'm good with it. So
I see a fire hydrant along the garage, though.
Oh, I can't imagine what's in this house. So, anything else that you guys pick up?
Hoarding conditions, I'm sure.
Hoarding, yeah.
Oh, you know that for sure.
What else do you guys pick up from here? So in a typical ranch, where are the stairs going to be to the basement?
Next to the back door.
Okay. Yeah, or in the hallway, it might be in that main hallway.
Dead center of the house.
Usually dead center of the house in that hallway. But how, you said you have a couple different accesses to this? I don't want to get into this too much because one-off isn't going to help us. But what you said from the
in
garage?
the picture you have showing right there, looks like the door to the right.
Yeah.
Goes nowhere.
Okay.
You'd have to break it in. That goes into the same porch on the D side.
Okay.
Okay. So the stairs to the basement are in the center of the house. There is also a set of stairs going through the garage into the basement. But there's no true outside access to the basement.
Yeah. So, I mean, That's one of those guys. If you get there and the homeowner's there, don't be afraid to ask them, "Hey, how do I get into your basement? How do I get into your attic?" Things like that, because obviously those are going to be things that we're gonna want to know as soon as possible. So, anyone else have anything for this, or we'll get to the next one? Okay. All right. So we said triple decker, heavy fire on the B side, smoke throughout. Right away, what is it? If we don't know what kind of occupancy is a triple decker? Multiple dwellings. So don't go, but you go to a private dwelling. The last two houses we looked at, and someone comes out to you and says everyone's out of the house. Okay, I can live with it. I still want to do a primary search, but I can live with it. I'm not trusting anything out of a multiple dwelling. Okay, the neighbor says they're not home. I'm not trusting them. You got to assume that these are going to be occupied apartments. Okay, I will tell you right now, never been to a triple decker fire in my life. So anyone out there, I've been to plenty of multiple dwelling, but not a true triple decker. So anyone out there that has more experience with these buildings than I do, other than knowing that they're extremely combustible and balloon frame generally, lay it on me. What do you got? We don't have a rear shot. We've got no access to the rear. Okay, so our main shots are AB, A, and AD. Okay, this may be the real thing in a multiple dwelling where you don't have access to the rear or easy access to the rear. So what is going to be our game plan for gaining access to the rear? Well, it may be a company, or who may give us our first good view of the rear. It may be someone that we put on the roof, okay, especially in a building like this, okay? Now, I realize I'm getting more into like that urban environment, if you will, and that may not be something that a lot of you come across, but just realize that in a larger building, either we have to drive someone around or we have to put someone on the roof in order to get a view of what's going on in the rear, which in this case, I'm going to want to put someone on the roof anyway, just for cock loft extension, vertical ventilation, and things like that. So that being said, I know we have some people here that have been to triple decker fires, but just multiple dwelling, balloon fires, balloon frame fires in general, what are some things we're looking at? Anyone? Dave.
Rapid spread to the attic.
Dave, what do you got?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I work for the city of Meriden. We got a lot of 3-deckers, a lot of 2.5 woods, kind of a typical building style for us. And really, kind of your bread and butter, getting the line onto the fire, getting above the floors to search. Typically, getting access to the rear isn't too much of a problem. You can either go down the left or right side. The buildings are close together, but it's usually an alleyway about a car's width apart. You can get to the rear of the buildings pretty quickly. They're just big and a lot of ground to cover, especially when you're limited manpower.
Yeah, I mean, this is from Meriden. I think I mentioned that before. The buildings that I go to like this are similar, but they're not balloon frame and they're ordinary construction. So they would be brick and mortar frames, but then all wood interior. This adds a complete level of complexity with it being 100% wood and old 100% wood. So it's really going to take off fire-wise a lot more rapidly. Anyone else want to touch on?
This is Willie Wiley again. I
Yeah,
would say there's probably going to be a common staircase going straight up through the front door. I mean, somewhere to the stairs are going to go right up to all 3 floors.
Yep.
Could be open on the inside 3 floors up.
Yeah. And this is where, I mean, you can, and again, I know I don't want to get too much into tactics. I'll just mention that, a lot of people may want to hit this from the outside, and I certainly understand that argument, but this is also where, you're not just worried about the people on that first floor, but you have to be worried about going up into the second and third floors and getting searches done up there. And so any delay in getting a hose line into the interior to protect our guys going above could potentially be a huge issue for them. If you were concerned about losing not stability, but control of those stairs, VES would be another option if you had low manpower and you had a specific bedroom that you wanted to search. But just realize that all of these come with a fair amount of danger with them because you have such a rapid fire spread, balloon frame, all wood, probably no sprinkler unless it was retrofitted, which I highly doubt it was. Really, this is one of those fires where if you leave and everyone's alive, civilian wise, you did your job, even if the house burns to the ground. My opinion on this. This is not going to be an easy fire. This is one of those where you may call for a second alarm right off the bat because of how much fire we have there. Even if it's not spreading interior, chances are if it's a summer day and those windows are open, you're going to get a good amount of auto exposure into those second and third floor windows. So who else? Anyone else? Yeah, Sweeney, go ahead.
At the very least, on the Bravo side, you're definitely going to have an exposure issue to deal with on your size up. I don't know if we mentioned that when we first did the initial size up on this, but
yeah, no, I think we just had that first view, so we probably didn't. But yeah, absolutely, And again, if it's a similar type building, which it looks like it's a multiple dwelling as well, and it has a similar siding, then that could definitely easily take off on you as well. So.
Yeah, what I see in this picture is this is probably more of an apartment house than a 3-family. There's no driveway to the back that's visible, so there's no stairway in the front up to the second and third floor. So there's probably not one to the rear either. So whoever said earlier there's probably a single stair inside is probably correct. I don't think it's right through the front door, but it's probably in there somewhere. This almost looks more like a rooming house than a 3-family. I can't quite see the number of meters or whatever is on the BD corner on the lower picture, but yeah, this would be a challenge for just about anybody. But I think your exposures are a big deal here. Your search is a big deal here, and trying to maintain the egress, through the front door to at least try to keep some of the fire off the stairs or whatever is going on inside.
Dave, you got your hand raised. What's up?
Okay, knowing this building, this is a 3-family. There's a staircase inside the front door. It's going to run up the front. There's a separate door into each apartment. It's just a large building, though. It's not really chunked up too much inside.
Yeah. Macy, what do you got?
I mean, I guess since the guy knows the building, I can ask him, but it looks like on that B side, that window looks like it's kind of split between the 2 floors. So from a size up standpoint, that's usually a pretty good indicator of the staircase that runs up that B side there. But if he knows, then I can just ask him.
Yeah, he just typed to me, to everyone in the chat that it is. And that's a phenomenal point you brought up. That's a huge, huge, huge point. I don't know if I was going to mention it here or another view that we had, but anytime you guys see a window that is midway between floors, that's almost always a staircase there. So just by going around, that's awesome. Very, very good picking that up. So anyone else want to hit on this one at all? I think Bernie said it well that thank you. That this is a very complicated fire and it's really going to take off on you. And we got to get a lot of resources on this quick. All right. And just because we knock that fire down does not mean that we're going to be going home soon. This is one of those where, we may very well be chasing this all night. So, all right. Anything else? We'll go to the next one. I'm never hitting that animation button again. Clear all drawings. All right, so we're going to go to the mixed occupancy now. Slide 11. So I like this one because I could do a lot with this simulation, and I don't know why I chose what I chose. I actually changed it a little bit from what it was on the other one. But you could really make this do a lot of different things if you wanted to. So What do you guys see? Obviously, this is one where you're not going to get a 360 in 30 seconds here. You may get it in a minute or two if you drive around. What might be another option here for getting a quick 360? Anyone?
Have that second doodad maybe come around the backside.
Even quicker. I don't know if I would do that. It's a possibility, but what's even possibly quicker than that? I'm saying possibly because I don't know, but
Cut through that
fire on the
antique
third
place.
floor, I guarantee you unless the fire started below, I guarantee you the first floor is clear. Just walk right through that first floor into the rear. You may have access, especially during the daytime. If that store's open, the first
Dan, if you look real close under the word antiques, you can see right through the building.
Yeah, well, I need glasses, so whatever. Yeah, I can see that now. But if this store's open, I'm asking them, hey, do you have access to the rear of your store? And if they do, I'm walking right through and taking a look at the rear. Matt, what do you got?
I was just going to say exactly what you said. Walk right through and check the rear through the first floor.
Dan, the other thing I would probably do here, this is very much like downtown Danbury, where there used to be buildings like this where we burned them down. Rather than, doing a personal 360, this is where, you got to find another officer that's on the ball and say, go to the back, tell me what I got.
Absolutely.
Because this is too big for one guy to run around the back. Send a third, fourth dude to the back and tell him he's Division C and tell me what's going on back there, because he's going to have to paint a picture better than I can from running through the building quick. And
Rob, I mean to say that you're wrong by sending second dude back there. I just probably would wait. I probably have first, depending on what my staffing was, but I would probably want them to get a hose line up there. But yeah, you may send subsequent unit back there. Certainly, again, in that volunteer department where we have 3-4 chiefs coming, we don't need 4 chiefs in front of the building. We may need to send one in the rear to see what's going on. From an engine company standpoint, this is not going to be a super, super quick stretch. It's not the longest stretch, but it's not the quickest. You're going to have at least 3 or 4 turns inside that building. So it is going to be something. One thing I see a lot of incident commanders struggle with, or I shouldn't say struggle with. We need to make sure that we're getting that first line into operation, regardless of where we're putting that first line. We got to get that first line into operation. And so we don't want to be stretching a second line until we have that first line operated. Yeah.
Anyone that's on this call other than you from your department, but pulling up to this, I don't care who you are on whatever town or city that's on this call. This is third alarm or greater. So I completely agree with like you said, the first 2 companies try to get some water on this fire from side A, whatever they're coming from, and put your ladder up in the front here and get everybody else coming to fill in all those other roles. If you put the fire out, all the other problems go away. But anyone who thinks, we're going to knock this down with the first due assignment is wrong. So I mean, I think you're right. The first 2 companies go to the front, try to get some water up to the third floor as fast as you can, get the truck up, and then, wait for the second and third alarm assignments to get to the back and to your other sides and so forth. Because, my key point here would be that you're going to need a lot of manpower for this, regardless of your department. So whatever you have to do to get that help there, this is going to be in the first minute or 2 of your size up and your resource request.
Someone just mentioned we could hit it with a duck gun. That is a possibility. Again, I don't want to get into too much tactics tonight. I think we all agree we have to get water on this. And but remember, what kind of occupancy do we have up there? I think we all agree it's probably, it could be commercial. It appears to be multiple dwelling for me. I don't know if the Utah guys are on here and can comment. I would assume that it's a multiple dwelling. So we need to worry about victims up there as well. So let's go around it. So I'm assuming that if we're walking this or driving this, we're going to go around the D side first. And so this is our view from the or the CD corner. And then we move around to the full C side. And then that kind of, it's all about the same. It's not this isn't mind-blowing from the rear different than the front, other than this access up to the third floor in the rear. That's definitely a little bit different. But what are we concerned about? So occupancy wise, we said we're going to be concerned about occupants on the third floor. Fire extension wise, again, this is something we want to make sure that we don't have fire on the second floor, although from the exterior, I certainly don't see any evidence of that. But what's going to be our major extension concern up here? And I realize that this is a little bit more something I'm used to than, maybe in the rural area. But Eric, what do you got? Christensen?
Not necessarily starting on the third floor, but if this does progress, the one thing I see is the upholstery shop on the end to the right.
This thing?
Yeah. If
Okay.
you saw in the CD corner that you showed, there's a pull-in upholstery shop. So I'm sure they have some sort of stock.
Oh
That
yeah,
goes
it
from-
gets By the time it gets over there, we're going to be exterior only, I would assume. But
You would
up
hope.
until that point, what's going to be my mate? How is the fire?
Cockloft.
Yeah, the common cockloft. May I see? Is that what you were going to say? You got something else, Joe?
Yeah, no, I was going to go with the common cockloft.
Yes. So you got to look, and just like what Bernie pointed out before with the raised ranch, how the roof lines are different. In this case, the fact that all three of these buildings look nearly identical and they all have a similar cornice, which is that top part of the parapet. This is almost definitely a common cockloft above there. And if it's not, the fire stops are going to be very, very limited and probably overcome fairly quickly. And so without getting into, again, too much tactic details, this is something where we are going to need to get a crew up onto the roof, cutting a hole, making inspections, and seeing if this fire is progressing over. I tried to add in some, decent smoke coming from the, eaves, cockloft, cornice area there, in order to kind of show that it may be progressing over there. So construction standpoint, am I worried about collapse initially here? Probably not. As a safety officer, because Bernie and I know we've talked about that a lot. What are a couple of things out of the box here that we may be looking for at a standpoint of a safety officer here? I know we're kind of going on tangents a little bit, and maybe this isn't a safety officer, this is something everyone should be looking for. But what are some points you guys see here maybe that we should be really concerned about from a safety standpoint? Go. Well, I'll tell you. All right, Willie, go ahead.
Well, it looks like there's some utilities running on the floor where it splits in there. It looks like electric coming in that way. I can't quite tell from there in the BC corner there. Does that look like there's utilities electric coming in there?
I'm sorry. What was the last part? I didn't hear you.
I'm worried about the electric coming in there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, electric's always going to be a concern. Absolutely. Again, like I said, if you say work.
So he makes a good point, Dan, that the electric's going in the building at the second floor, right there. Stop there. Yeah. Move to your left.
Yeah.
Right in there. Yeah. So it's probably from the 1 story going into the 2 story. So that is a great point.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, electric is always. I mean, without a doubt, you got to take care of the utilities. Who else? Anyone else have anything?
Would you mind just moving it to the full seaside?
What's up, Liam?
Would you mind just moving the slide to the full seaside?
Yeah.
All right. So I can't really tell what's going on the lower level, if that's the HVAC units or whatever. But if you don't find those initially, that's going to be one of your concerns because they're probably going to be rooftop.
That's an excellent point. Absolutely. That's a very, very good point. Very nice. The other thing I see for especially if your department doesn't operate on flat roofs a lot, one of the biggest things I see here, and it's a little hard, well, you can see it here, is you have a parapet on the front, on the side, but you have no parapet in the rear. And so as you have this really thick black smoke coming out of the rear and coming up over the edge of the roof, you're going to have fairly limited visibility up there. I'm very concerned with any of the guys on the roof just walking off the back and not really realizing that there's not a parapet there. If you're going to if you have a flat roof, chances are it's going to be that rear that's not going to have a parapet, so that rainwater and stuff can wash off if there's not a drain on the roof. So that's something to be very cognizant of with flat roofs. Generally, don't get sucked into, well, I have a parapet on the front, parapet on the rear, or on the side, so it's on the rear too. A lot of times it's not on the rear. The other thing that you need to report is that anyone that goes to the rear, that's something. And then also, no fire escapes in the rear. So we have a multiple dwelling. Usually I'm expecting some sort of secondary means of egress. No fire escapes in the rear. Even if this isn't a big city, you got a multiple dwelling, no fire escapes in the rear. Maybe sprinklered inside, although I don't know. But that's something, for egress purposes in the rear, no fire escape is something to keep in mind. The other thing is if conditions are that bad in there, you can always go into the adjoinings and, kind of get a peek of what the layout may be like. You can go up to the roof from the adjoining as good access to the roof or something like that in order to kind of get a peek. And then if you need to examine the cock loft, you can do that both from the roof cutting a hole or the bottom poking a hole. So a lot going on there. We're kind of simplifying it, trying to get through it a little bit tonight. But the bottom line is water on that fire, find out if there's any victims up there, and checking for lateral extension in that cock loft. Those are going to be the big things. That's going to be your primary means of not spending all day here and burning down a city block. So what else? Anyone else for this one? No? Okay. So it's 9:50. I figure we'll do one more. I'll give you guys the choice. We got that apartment where we had that long smoke comment. Yeah, that's a good one. We'll hit that one. I'm not giving you guys a choice. All right, nice. So that was slide 12. All right, so this was the one that we talked about where, it's not a quick 360. So this is kind of that B side, so you can see it's on a road. So if you drove into that front parking lot there, obviously you really have no idea what's going on, and you're going to need to have your second due, even if it's the engine, maybe come to this side and have an idea what's going on. So we're really not getting any more information from here, so we go to the rear. Oops, and that's going to be our big one. So you can see we had 1 in the front and 3 in the rear. Okay. So a little bit of an oddball here. The Utah guys haven't texted me, so I don't think they're around. But so we'll just have to do this ourselves. We're mutual aid today. We don't know this building, so lay it on me. What do you guys think? What do you see? What are you thinking? Bye, Bernie. All right, now we can actually have fun. No, I'm kidding. All right, what do you guys see? I don't want to talk anymore. Come on.
Well, looks like the lower level's auto exposing the second level.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Matt, what do you got, Romeo?
It looks like we got fire coming from what looks like the first floor and the second floor. And it may even be on the third floor too. It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So
I made it hard to see on purpose. I made it hard to see on purpose. I don't know.
Does that type of construction, will you have a good chance of it as it rolls up the side of the building going into the roof too there?
It could be. It's hard to tell what kind of construction it is from here, actually. I was trying to look. I want to touch on verbiage because I think you're absolutely right, but I just want to kind of clear it up for everybody. You said auto exposing, and I just want to define that so people know. Auto exposing is when you have fire on the exterior extending to other floors or other buildings on the exterior. Generally the same building. So see you have fire here and it's extending up to the floor above. If this was fire on the first floor extending to the second floor inside, we would not call that auto exposing. We would just call that extension or extending up. But you're 100% right with that verbiage. That's what I see as well. But you actually have a couple, what I tried to do here is a couple of different options. Number one, this could be a fire on the first floor that vented out the first floor and auto exposed up to the second floor. Number two, this could be a fire that started on the exterior and auto exposed up to the second floor. Or this could be a fire that started on the second floor, vented out the window, and droppings of it came down onto the first floor and caught things on fire there. So you have a lot of different options here. And really, this is one where you got to get into those apartments and see what's going on, because these are those where it looks really good from the outside, but it could be complete bullshit. When I say complete bullshit, probably not with that second floor, but with the first floor, if people just put barbecues or leave stuff out there kind of like as a walkout little area, this could be a really good looking fire that is all on the exterior of the building, if that makes sense. So anytime you have fireproof buildings like that, and this may not be fireproof, but it looks like it's at least fire resistive of some sort. Anytime you have those types of buildings, and you have fire visible, you got to make sure that the fire is actually interior and not just all exterior. So what else you guys got?
If, sorry, not to monopolize, but I was just thinking
No.
also if the siding were something fairly combustible, vinyl or you might get something that looks pretty exciting with not a lot else behind it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Kind of reminds me of the nunnery here.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. One in the front, three in the rear.
Are there any more views of this, or is that it?
No, this is all I got from them. But let's talk. So let's say that this is an apartment fire. So exterior fire? Okay, you go into the apartment, it's clear. Meaning the apartment's clear, the fire is outside. You stretch the line through, put it out. That's fine. What are some of your thoughts if this is an actual apartment fire that's just auto exposing, auto extending, venting out to the exterior?
Surrounding apartments?
What's up?
Surrounding apartments?
Yeah. So if your apartment's on fire, how are you going to get out? You don't have a fire escape. You're not jumping out the window because there's no smoke in your apartment. So you're going out a public hallway. And so, gaining Joe, go ahead. I won't monopolize. Macy, go ahead.
I mean, if it's an apartment fire, like you said, I don't see any exterior means of egress on this side. So they likely went out their front door, which is probably their only way into a common hallway. And whether they shut the door or not is going to be a big deal, because that's going to fill up the whole hallway, making it harder for everybody else to get out. And then you're going to be going in basically where everybody's coming out. So unless there's a second means of you going in, it might be a fight getting by people.
Yeah. Well, or they might be unconscious if it's that bad, That's the biggest thing with any of these multiple dwellings or any of these fireproof, fire-resistant multiple dwellings that have a common hallway is that front apartment door left open or closed. And if you get into an enclosed hallway and it's lights out conditions, you pretty much know that apartment door was left open versus getting into that hallway and it's fairly clear. You have a pretty good idea that apartment door, was closed when the occupant left. And that's a huge size up point. It changes the game significantly. So what about, how are we Dave, did you have something? Or Sweeney, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you're starting to ask, is getting another second engine or second line over the street side. Because if the guy's going in to make the fire apartment, we don't know if it's gotten up into the soffit or the exterior siding, so we're going to want to hit it from the outside as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is one where if it is going to extend up into the soffit, then by all means, you probably should consider hitting it from the exterior, at least where my mouse is, even if you're not going to hit it from here. But I agree 100%. You're going to want a line stretched to the exterior here just to have, even if you don't use it, absolutely. You're going to want a line stretched here. But
especially if that line coming in the A side has trouble getting in there for whatever reason.
Yep. Absolutely.
You could darken it down before they get in.
Yep. That is just going to be very important that there be adequate communication, because you don't want those lines opposing each other at the same time. So It's all well and good to stretch both lines at the same time, but we cannot have them operating at the same time. That's very important. Okay.
I guess I'm still struggling with, are these like, do you think they're set up like townhouses inside, three stories or?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I could try to find out, but I don't know.
I was trying to visualize where the stairways might be. And if they're inside the units or if the thing sort of at the end there on the D side, I'm sorry, on the B side, all the way out by the tree, if you go straight into the fire hydrant, if that was like a stairwell.
Yeah, it could be.
But yeah.
It could be one stairwell right in the middle too, You could walk into here and then there's a center stairwell that goes into the two wings. So, yeah, I mean, and again, that's going to be part of your size up. Your 360 may not give you the answers, but it may give you the questions that you need to go find answers for, like that, So absolutely, I think that's a big one as well. So
Dan, you're certain that these are residential and not office condos?
This one specifically,
I mean, from the A side, it really does look commercial.
I agree, but I'm pretty sure he told me it was I thought he told me it was a residential.
Definitely looks like an office setup.
Yeah, from the front, it definitely looks like it had building or company names over the areas.
Yeah, but I thought he said it was his pic. The guy said it was his picture, and it was. I'm scrolling back to the chat to see if I can see it.
Could be a motel type of thing.
Yeah. Here, let me.
It kind of reminds me, if anybody's familiar with Farmington, the Exchange has this type of roof line up on the third floor where they have these offices. In like these mezzanines or whatever they are up on the top roof.
Yeah, he's not in the chat anymore, so I'll have to email him. I'll email you guys and let you know what he says. But looking at it from the rear, I think it looks residential, but I agree that from the front, it does have that commercial look to it. So I'd be interested to hear what he comes back to me with. It is from Utah, though, so. Whatever, right?
Back to knowing your area.
All right.
It could end up being a mix of both too.
It could be
have commercial occupancies with residential mixed in, and
yeah,
we've also had some places where they've started out as hotels and switched over to more of a residential apartment buildings because the hotel didn't work out so well.
No, yeah, and if it's your first due, hopefully but certainly if it's not, I don't expect you to know. And depending on your area, I mean, you may have such a big first due area, you don't know every single building. So, that's the reality. Do you guys want to do one more or should we wrap it up?
What's the last one?
Well, I got all of them, but we'll do that Cape quick.
I'm in.
And
All right, so this was the Cape. So we said we need to do a 360, obviously. This was our D side, and this is our CD side. So what do you guys got? Go ahead. Joe, what do you got, Macy?
I think at least from a 360 point, obviously from the front, it looked like it was a 2-story. We just got to make it known that it's a walkout in the rear because that'll make your initial stretch obviously a lot different. Instead of thinking that you're going to come down an interior stairwell, it's probably a lot easier just to come around the seaside and hit it from there.
Yeah, I mean, basically all that's burning is a bunch of rubbish underneath an open deck area. So if you stretched interior here, you'd end up coming out this rear door and just around here, you'd probably be almost completely visibility would be almost perfect inside there because it's really an exterior fire with some interior, smoke and maybe some minor extension, but this is mostly an exterior fire inside of like an enclosed lattice area. So that's just how important a 360 is. And then if you look here, what we were talking about before, I mean, it's a 3/4 dormered second floor. So this isn't really, a lot of capes just come down here and have a knee wall. This is dormered. So, if you came to the rear, it's a 2-3 3-story building. It's obviously 2 stories, but walkout in the rear. And again, that walkout is something, if you're that first due chief and you come and do this, I'm putting that over the radio. All units be advised I have a full walkout basement. You know, that's a huge point. If I come around here and I got fire blowing out of these windows, I'm with you. I might take my line around here and come in from the rear versus trying to make the stairs. So I don't, maybe you guys disagree, agree, but if I get anything across tonight, keep your first ins simple and do that 360, because that 360 is going to tell you a lot, or at least tell you what you don't know and make you have to do that. So anyone else on this one? Yes, no?
You have the B side?
I don't have a B side. This is where I dropped my generator off to be worked on, and they were home, and I didn't feel like asking to take pictures, and I didn't want to be a creep, so I got 3 pictures, and you live with it.
You took pictures anyways.
Yes, I did. But I highly recommend. Yeah, all right. Any other questions on anything we did all night?
No.
This is awesome.
Cool. I have I will email you also, but I do have, can you get, I have to share this stupid thing. I have a survey. I'll share the new, I'll share the different screen, and maybe you guys can copy it. You guys see this link now?
Yes.
So are you guys able to copy it from your computer or no?
No.
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 Okay, so I'll just put it in the chat. There you go.
There you go.
It's like 6 questions. It should take you 2 seconds. If you guys don't mind filling it out, I'd appreciate it, because I know that this wasn't perfect, although it went fairly well, I think. And but again, the idea behind this is, we can do this again. We can come do it. I can do it remotely for your department privately, or I can hopefully, quarantines are over, I can actually come to your firehouse and do this a little more in depth. We can also get into interior work, and the interior work would just be more radio communications. Obviously, we're not going to simulate an interior fire, but what we can simulate are conditions and have you give radio reports based on those conditions, on air or off air. Anything. I don't know, if you guys have nothing else, I appreciate you guys taking the time. And if you haven't watched Tiger King, it is 6 hours of your life you will never get back. It is very similar to Jerry Springer, but like a documentary of it. So it's entertaining, but I'll leave it. All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Dan.
program, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate
Good job, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Good night.
A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Nice job, Dan.
Good job.